Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the nature and, if you like, the architecture of dirty tricks when one group of people find that someone's kind of just in the way of what they're doing and they can't or don't think they can control that person, so they decide to sort of take them out and get rid of them, nuke them. And the sort of tactics and tricks that they use to do it. Now, we've seen, it writ large on the international stage with, the way desperately how the establishment worked to bring down Trump, and to almost from the moment he was inaugurated to try and fuck him up in every way they could. But which was a disgraceful exercise in my view. Have better policies, have better ideas. That's how you do it. But no, dirty tricks with a preferred option, and it usually is when someone's getting in the way. Now I've seen it in the corporate world up close more than once, and I sort of was particularly close, as in was able to view it sort of reasonably close up on a particular one. Now. This is, again, a corporate setting, not political, but what happened was as I understand it, at least, and some of this is in hindsight that I'm putting together the pieces sort of after the event, but this bunch of corporate goons, they were doing what I think was a financial scam of proportions, pretty big one, and it turned out that something they hadn't foreseen is that somebody at kind of like junior VP type level had to sign off on something, and they couldn't really put the whole thing and get it to stack up and look legit without this guy's signature. But he wasn't part of the in crowd. He wasn't part of the goon squad, and they thought they could have kept it all in-house, but they kind of needed this guy. Now, they were very unsure about him in the sense of, would he commit perjury in court for them, and would he back them up? Would he knowingly and openly engage in criminal activity? And they thought he was a pretty straight shooter and so on. So they didn't think, well, it's not that they didn't think he would. They doubted he would, and they thought if things did get ugly, then he'd probably tell the truth on the stand in court as a witness or whatever it was. And they thought the risk was therefore too great of having him there, so they had to take him out and had to get rid of him. But he was good worker, well thought of, and these sort of things. So that made it even more difficult. If he was useless or was a drunkard or so, it would have made it easier. But he was this guy who was a well-behaved, diligent, hard-working teetotaler type thing, happily married family man, and so on and so forth. So they had a bit of a challenge, but they, using their own lives as a reference, they all, for example, were very frequent visitors to sleazy brothels, and they did drugs and were into all sorts of shit. So they figured that if they were, then he must be, maybe not to the same extent, but still. So they, these are people who think nothing of. Instead of, and so I'm going out for lunch. Instead of going to get a sandwich, they go into the local brothel for a quick hand job and that sort of thing. So that's the sort of people they are. And they are the sort of people who go on sex holidays to like Thailand or something like that. So anyway, so they want to get rid of this guy. So how do they go about it? So there's usually a set piece. You can almost set up a list, and I've seen this a number of times. You could almost set up a list. So what do they do first? They go for his expense account and try and find something that he's claimed on there that shouldn't have been. Like maybe he took his wife on a trip and didn't pay the difference in the fares or something, something like that sort of thing. So they trawl through his expenses, and they effectively set up a hit squad that, a bunch of people, your job is to find something on this guy, anything, it doesn't matter, find something. So they go and hit his expense account, go through that with a effectively a forensic audit on his expenses. But they can only find a few cups of coffee, nothing, no smoking gun shit or anything like that, or nothing, not enough to take someone out the back and shoot him. So anyway, that falls over. So step number two is look at his browsing history on the internet. Surely he's gone and looked at porn or something like that. So then they can use that and say, well, look, clearly he's not an upstanding person. Which is a bit rich coming from those folks who were right into the online porn and every other form of that. So they tried that, but nothing. They picked up a couple of things, like he'd gone on to some site to look at, I think, curtains, because his wife wanted to redo the curtains in their house, and so they ummed and ahed for a moment about could they use that to say he was wasting company time doing personal things, but they figured that wouldn't fly either. So they're looking for something to like really nail him, to say, hey buddy, we've got you, and we've got the smoking gun, so you better get out of here quietly, not say a word, otherwise you're toast, you'll never work in this town again. So it was that they were looking for that level of something to hang over him. But if someone's sort of reasonably well behaved and everything, that's not an easy gig. So they that fell over. He didn't have any browsing history that they could use. So they're upping the ante sort of each time here. Now they're trying to set him up with a girl. So they want him to behave inappropriately with a girl, so she can run crying into the someone's office with the torn blouse. He tried to rape me. So that's the next step, and that's usually a go-to. That's always one that they try on. So what they do is they get his I suppose you'd say his executive assistant. They get her to go on a study tour, like an educational sort of thing, so they can bring in a temp, and the temp's all handled by sort of HR Central. So they do that, but he doesn't know that this temp is a plant to try and get him to behave inappropriately. So like he comes into work early, usually sort of 7:30. That the EA doesn't normally start until like about 9 o'clock, 8:45, somewhere around there. But they tip this girl off, say, well, look, he's in at 7, there's no one around. We want you to come in at 7 and wear a really low-cut blouse, flirt with him, try and get him to do something or to say something, and that'll be, preferably to do something, saying something, but it has to be really inappropriate, like, get him to say, I really want to fuck you or something. Do everything you can to get him to do something inappropriate. And here's a girl who'd be half his age. Now they're offering her quite good money to do this. He's a girl who's not wealthy, and I thought, we'll give you $10,000 if you can get him to do or say something inappropriate. So she tries hard, and something I want to show you. Can I come around to your side of the desk? And she makes sure pushes her body against him, and he goes to get a cup of coffee or something, and she makes sure she goes into the coffee room to rub up against him and try and get him to do something or say something. Doesn't work. So they think, gee, this is no good. We're going to have to up the ante again. So then they try and entrap him, because he goes to the company gym, so they try and put a young woman in charge of the gym. So she's got the high cut leotard and lots of legs showing and all that sort of thing. So they try and get him there, get him to do that, and so she pretends to get super familiar and friendly with him and that sort of thing, to see if they can at least get him to go somewhere and maybe start removing clothing so they can film it and photograph it and then use that to stand over him. But that doesn't work either, and they even speculate, could he be a closet gay guy? And so no, they don't think that's it. So they're really getting sort of desperate. So now they go through all his emails, and again, a forensic audit of his emails, trying to find something, anything, an expression, a phrase, and and they struggle there. But then someone comes up with it, and they're desperate by this stage. Time's running out. They come up with an email that where someone says. Sends him an email because he's pestering them to do something like, and says, "Well, why don't you f off?" Not the whole word, just the f. So he comes back with something like, "Well, why don't you f off?" Again, just the f, not the whole word. So they say they grab hold of that and say, "Well, what he intended to use the f word," and that means that he's transgressed the company policy, which is not to use expletives in the internal communication. So this is like the smoking gun they use, and so they use that as the excuse. Now this is all because he won't sort of sign off on something that they need him to sign off on. So they've effectively said, well, you have to sign off on saying that the pigs can fly, and he doesn't, and says, well, you've got to instruct me to do it if you want me to do that, or you've got to give me the evidence, or otherwise, well, you get someone else to sign. But no, they have to have him for the legal thing to stand up, as they see it, at least. So this is an example of the extent they go. They even try things like, when he goes to the tea room. They've got someone who comes in to do like exercise classes for people who are hunched over their computer workstations all day, and so and they find this very attractive young girl, and they always have to be small and frail, because then that makes it look like he's not only acting inappropriately, but he's oppressing them because he's huge and big, and they're so little, tiny and frail, and they want that sort of look to make it just to gin it up even more. So when he goes to make a coffee, they have this girl's kind of on standby, and she waits to see if he's on his own, and then goes in there and tries to get him to do something inappropriate. But you think he'd have probably woken up to what's going on here. Maybe he didn't. Maybe if he's doesn't see the world that way, he wouldn't see it. He may think things are a bit unusual, but wouldn't necessarily see that all the energy and effort and cost and time that these goons are putting into it. But it goes to show that they'll go, people, if they want to get at you, they'll go to exceptional lengths to go. And this is, I suppose, in the overall scheme of things, small potatoes. But if you up the ante and sort of add in just the, if the stakes are, for example, tens of millions or billions even of dollars, then you can imagine how far people will go to get their own way and to take out or remove people who are perceived as obstacles, or even not fully on board. Even people, they're not sort of obstacles. Maybe they're just viewed as risky. They may not commit perjury in court for these goons, that type of thing. And so the guy's got to be got rid of. And equally, the cleaner and sort of more, upright the citizen the person is, the more dangerous they become. It becomes inverse to the reality. The more dangerous they become, because they're less likely to have a past that allows them to be stood over and controlled. And that scares people like this. They need to know that they can hold something over you, and that becomes the basis for, as they would see it, the loyalty through this control. But that's just like a business thing. Now, I've seen things like this before in business, not as up close as that example I just gave, but I've seen things before. Watched the extent that in the corporate world, some of the goons will go to just to get rid of people, not because they've directly refused to take an order, or they've threatened or been difficult or haven't done their job or something like that. There's nothing like that. It's just that a scam is going down, and they have to know that everyone that is involved in the scam, or close enough to it to know what's going on, every one of them has to be completely loyal and completely under control. And anyone that isn't under that level of control, doesn't have the goons would say, it doesn't have the loyalty and therefore must be got rid of. But they've done nothing wrong. They've just happened to have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or happen to be just an obstacle to what the goons and their scams are trying on. So you've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.